out of Sacramento, California.
Woo! What you gonna do?
Better. Stronger.
Son of a bitch.
Faster.
Oh, yeah!
I could ride. I've been doing 2 laps, and that was the fastest I've done it so far.
So, hold on, let me get this straight. So, you come here, and walking is kind of tough for you, right? Like it hurts, or it's like you have
yeah. I mean, walking, what would be short distances to like other people, but to me it'd be a long. Like walking a mile hurts my feet.
Yeah.
Maybe not even like once. Or maybe I'll do it once, but then like they'll be hurt the rest of the day, and then I won't want to get on them again.
But when you ride your bike, you're comfortable and you're happy.
Yeah, for the most part, it's a lot less. My bike's fitted. I guess you're supposed to fit your bicycles, right? My bike's pretty fitted. To me, I've taken a while to try to get the extra handlebars on it, and I'm not as sore, so I'll do that. It's just easier on me.
It's interesting because my dad is the same as you. Like he likes riding his bike a lot, so he's always out on his bike doing something, And I'm the opposite. Like I actually get on the bike and the bike hurts. Like for whatever reason, like I'm in pain on my bike. Like maybe it's just not fitted right. Like maybe there's something we can do to make it more comfortable. So it's interesting because I do have a bike, but I don't use it that much because
it's probably not fitted for you.
Yeah, it for some reason it's just like it's uncomfortable, and and so I choose to walk. Mm-hmm. But I think that the point here is that you can do something, right? Like everybody can do something,
I mean, at one point, and it was, it sucked being the fat guy getting in a pool. But at one point when I was at my worst health, I rented a membership to a local swim club. And when I was at my worst health, I would just go to the deep end and just tread water.
I think when you were doing that, I was really proud of you because, you're a big guy and I wouldn't want to be the guy at the pool. Good. I wouldn't want to be the fat guy at the pool.
Dude, Chris, I can't even tell you. Let me just set the stage for you. And first of all, I want to tell you, no one ever there. There's no employee or really person there has ever been rude to me, or I've never felt.
And no one's ever going to say anything. It's more in you.
Yeah,
you think, right?
Yeah. But the only problem I have with going to this gym, and God bless them, I understand they got to make do with what they have, but into the pool, there's only one way in and one way out. They don't have 2 entrances, and that little shallow end is right where they do all the kiddie classes.
So you got to walk by all these little kids.
You got to walk through the kids getting trained, and before you even get in the water, walk through the horde of parents.
Yeah.
Just sitting there being bored and judgmental. Not even that they're probably not judgmental. I'm judgmental.
If anything, the kids would be the judgment. The kids would be the ones that say something because they don't know.
Yeah,
better.
well, I mean, it's obnoxious. It's just bad all the way around. And you're walking barefooted on slick carpet or slick concrete or these plastic trays of death on your feet. So it's not like I'm even moving graciously. I'm all tippy-toeing and ooping and owing as I'm stepping on the plastic non-slip pads. It just listen, worse things. People have overcome harder situations. I don't want to over dramatize it, but it did kind of suck.
Yeah.
It did kind of suck.
Well, it's with the good thing about walking for me too is a lot of times I'm walking and I'm in pain, and so it's I don't really want to be in a public space or I don't want to be around too many people. But I've found, and we put this in the video about walking that we did, found that the more that I just walk and the more that I do, and I was telling you yesterday, I was in a lot of pain walking around the block, and as I go, my body, I'm like the Tin Man. I'm an old, I'm 49 years old, which isn't that old, but as I move around and then I stop, my body just tightens all up. I have some sort of autoimmune condition. It's something that I really hope to nip in the bud during World Carnivore Month. And what I'm going to do on World Carnivore Month is in the beginning, I'm going to take a leap that I've never taken before. And I'm just going to go back to what Michaela Peterson recommended to me of just doing meat and water.
Lion diet.
I did the lion diet for a while and I quit because I had such massive diarrhea. And then I went and I looked up all the different things that you could do to possibly get rid of diarrhea and why this happens and things like that. And I think what I've done is built myself a platform by I've been like, I haven't had carbs the whole month before. So I've been eating like very low carbohydrate, but keeping some like dairy products in there, keeping some vegetables here and there. But basically I did no
Maybe
carbs.
keto. Call yourself keto
Yeah.
this last month?
I was keto, and so by going like really strict keto for a long time and doing a lot of fasting, now I'm going to move into carnivore.
Yeah.
When last time I saw Michaela, when I saw her in person, I'm like, well, she's hot and she's cool. I'm gonna try her thing, right? And I'm gonna do it. And I was like really pumped. And then I got this really bad diarrhea, and then like 5 days later, I texted her first of all, like after like 3 days, and said, "Hey, this is going awesome. I feel great." Then 2 days later, I was doubled over the entire day, and I couldn't, I basically just couldn't get off the toilet. And so I like texted her again, and she's like, I said, "Hey, I had to have some like rice and bananas," and she kind of gave me meh, like don't do that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And for whatever reason, I'm just like, you know what? I'm not. This isn't a diet for me. Like this isn't going to work for me. For whatever reason, I kind of gave up. I think I kind of, to be honest, got a little bit like, not offended, but like a little bit mad, like I'll show you, kind of thing.
Right.
Like I'll show you I can do. And so then I went on a diet where I was eating like rice and beef for a long time, and actually felt really, really good for a long time. But now for whatever reason, I feel the carnivore calling, and I want to go back to, try to do just the meat and water. I've been debating like getting rid of coffee, which is just kind of crazy.
I want to. Okay, so this could be.
It doesn't necessarily mean getting rid of coffee, but getting rid of coffee for me means getting rid of like heavy cream.
Heavy cream. I just real quick. I don't know if this is true. Correct me if I'm wrong. Okay. And shout out to Darth Luigi. I saw him on your brother's podcast
Darth
this
Luigi
morning.
is Luis
Valenois or something like that. I probably said it wrong. That'll get used to it. I learned about keto from his Facebook group, Keto Gains.
Yeah.
I was, my mind wasn't ready, clearly. Mm-hmm. My mind wasn't ready, but I got the head knowledge from watching his group and him and Tyler. And if I remember right, they said that adjustment period is, oh man, if I'm wrong, you can just, nip me in the ankles, but it's your gut biome adjusting. It is to the new food that you're putting into it. Like at first, your gut biome is just used to all this starchy food, and if you eat a trash diet, your body optimizes for a trash diet, and you get a trash diet gut biome. Yeah, and you're going to feel bad. You're going to have the byproducts of a trash diet, but your body has to like re-engineer its gut biome for what you're feeding it and let that old stuff die. That's where all that digestional stuff comes from? Is that right?
Yeah. The thing is that when you switch up your gut microbiome,
thank you.
When you switch, when it makes that switch, it's got to dump a lot of these things out, no pun intended, and it basically dumps them like pretty fast, and your ass becomes a water fountain basically. It shoots out. It's funny, there used to be a drink at Gold's Gym called Blue Thunder. It's like American bodybuilding, like one of those pre-made like workout drinks that you get. Blue Thunder was it tasted horrible. And I used to work at the counter at Gold's Gym with John Cena at the pro shop. And John Cena used to call them, it reminds me of this, he used to call them fountain drinks. And people would be like, they would come up and be like, "No, sir, I think you're confused. This isn't a fountain drink. A fountain drink is like a soda." And then John's like, no, it's a fountain drink because your ass is going to be a fountain after you drink it.
That's great.
And that was like his little saying for the Blue Thunder.
That's awesome.
Like somebody'd say, "Can I get a Blue Thunder?" He's like, "Oh, a fountain drink." And they're like, "No, it's not a fountain drink. It's that." He goes, no, I know, but I call it a fountain drink. And then we tell him why. Yeah. And they would always like get a laugh out of it. And then they'd be like, no, I'm fine when I drink these. And then they'd come back like after the workout and be like, "You know what? I kind of shit my pants during my workout."
Yeah. Ooh,
they'd always realize it. They'd be like, "You were right. That really does blow you out."
That's a post-workout meal.
Yeah, and in all honesty, there really isn't anything worse than having like a gut or a stomach problem. I've endured some pretty painful things with like hip replacement surgery and other things in my body, but anytime I've had a really bad stomach ache, it's probably been some of the worst pain I've ever been in.
that internal crunching when your stomach is
stomach
cramping.
hurts. You know how your whole body gets like
Yeah.
hot and tense and like you feel, I mean, you just feel awful.
It's a horrible feeling.
Avoiding stomach issues at all costs is big for me. And that's a big reason that keeps me on a carnivore diet or like a, more of a meat-based diet. When you ask somebody, well, what did you eat yesterday? There's no way they can pinpoint what they actually ate. There's like probably 100 different ingredients that they ingested. But if you're like, what did you eat yesterday? I'm like, I just had meat. It's pretty easy to pinpoint what you're doing. And I should say the mistakes that I made on the last rendition of the true carnivore diet, or what Michaela calls the lion diet, the biggest mistakes I made was just not including enough fat. Trying to be like more of a warrior, trying to go in this with like a mindset of like, I know fat doesn't make you fat, but I don't need it. I'm going to eat all protein. And, and by eating all protein, it screwed me up. I tell people, and I told on Mark's podcast, I'm sponsored by Piedmontese beef, and I don't think there's a better beef product on the entire planet. I don't think there's a better bunch of people that I've met on the entire planet than the people that work there. And the problem with Piedmontese beef during carnivore is that their steaks are actually too lean. So the answer to that isn't to switch where I get my meat from. The answer is to switch the kind of meat that I'm eating from them. So in a way, World Carnivore Month is kind of welcome because the entire year I've been eating like really lean steaks. Like they have like 5 grams of fat. But now I can eat the ribeyes, which have about 30 grams of fat. And I can also eat the Hop Dottie fatty patties, which were like an invention of mine. Hop Dottie's a restaurant. There's 30 of them. They're out of Austin, Texas, but there's 30 of them in the country. And I have a friend that's the CEO of Hop Dottie, and I was able to get Piedmontese beef and Hop Dottie together, hooked up for like a pretty big deal that that's all they serve at their restaurants now is these Piedmontese burgers. And ever since they started doing that, people love it. And the business has been, really, really doing well. So they created like their own patties for that called Hop Dottie fatty patties that are on their website, and they have a little bit more fat than regular burgers, and they're just delicious. They're awesome, and they're perfect for this kind of style of a carnivore diet.
I love certified Piedmontese. Their hot dogs, like I told you, are the best. I have 3 right here. Like I just loaded this up.
Oh, that's got hot dogs in it?
Yeah, it's a
you have a thermos full of hot dogs.
It's a thermos full of hot dogs.
Did you cook them or you just brought them in?
I cooked them.
Yeah.
And then it can hold 3. And then here I'll show it if
just so people know that
right there.
A
little fork.
That's a great idea, right? So like a thing though is that you could take a package of hot dogs. I'll tell you, you'll laugh at this. This is great. I have a package of hot dogs. Because it's cold out now, it doesn't really matter. Mm-hmm. I have a package of hot dogs. I like keep a package in my car every day.
I mean, at this temperature, when it's 42 degrees outside, why not?
Well, even if it was hot out, I wouldn't do it. It might be gross. Of course. But even if it was like warm out, hot dogs are still fine, like sitting in there all day or whatever. But what I'm saying is like I bring them. I don't have them just sitting in there forever. I had a pack in there yesterday. And then I took it back inside because I didn't eat them. My plan is if I get hungry at work, I have food with me. Right. I have 6 hot dogs with me that I could cook up at any time. And they take, 30 seconds in the microwave, or there's an air fryer here or whatever. So it's really quick to cook them up, and I'll just smash some of those. And it's like, it's nice to know that you can have it with you. Like hot dogs are going to keep way better than a steak. You can't really cook ground beef anywhere here, so that would be gross to bring. So it's like, just bring some hot dogs, just heat them up. And these hot dogs do have a couple of like little ingredients in them that are not necessarily carnivore. Like there's a little bit of corn syrup and a little bit of, that's just holds everything together, So they don't use a lot of that stuff in there. There's no other hormones, not a lot of preservatives. Something interesting I was looking at yesterday was we have all these labels on food, and we can even go further into depth on this, but I say like they don't have any hormones in them. Sometimes cattle use hormones, most of the time they don't. But when you see like chicken in the store and it says no hormones, like on the chicken, well, it's actually a stupid labeling because hormones are actually illegal to use in chicken. And there's no hormones used in any chicken in the United States. So great. It's like when you buy the gluten-free Twizzlers.
Yeah, right.
They were gluten-free to begin with.
Right.
These animals, these chickens, they are not allowed to use hormones on them to begin with.
Right.
So it's like a lot of these things that we see, like for example, the organic phrase and all these words, they're just buzzwords to sell us things. They're not really helping anybody. You
want a real quick other industry example of that? A couple decades ago, I spent the summer working at a car dealership, and this guy, he showed me how, I don't know if it's nationally or regionally, but he said, hey, look at their advertisement. They say on their commercial, you won't find a lower marked MSRP than here at blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
He's like, well, that's because the MSRP is everywhere. Like, we all have that same MSRP.
It's like, you won't find this Apple product, like cheaper anywhere.
Right.
Well, because Apple sets their prices.
Right, and everybody has that same price.
Yeah, your AirPods are $179 no matter where you go.
Yeah.
If you go to the Apple store, they get the genius of it is that they get to share in the profit no matter where it moves, right? I mean, like if like Apple was selling them cheaper, everybody just go to the Apple store.
Sunglasses are the same.
They'd make less money. They'd make less money, but they make the same percentage profit probably. Mm-hmm. But how beautiful is it that they have, it's like they figured that out.
That's their thing. You sell at the price that we set, right?
In a way, I kind of like that better, and I'll tell you why. I hate being bamboozled. Like, I wish you could buy cars that way. I wish like a car, because I feel like there's more room for fuckery when you're told, like, okay, I used to work at Gold's Gym Venice. They used to tell me every time you get somebody in here to sign up for a membership, we need you to have them have an emotional experience. That's how you sell memberships. And there's like a sign up fee, like $149. So like, in the beginning, I get you in there. Hey, what's your name? Oh, Russell, great to meet you. Blah, blah. I'll be like, how many times do you work out a week? How much water do you drink? I ask you all these questions. Yeah. So I can get you thinking about how you don't do any of this yet.
Right.
And you're like, I don't do any of that. I'm like, oh, you're really going to need this. But you know what, man? I know things are tight right now. And with everything going on right now, it's difficult. So why don't we take this $149 and we'll just knock it down to $99?
Yeah.
Would that get you going today?
For you today.
And you'll say, blah, blah, blah. I say, well, look, as soon as you get up and walk out that door, this deal expires.
Right.
So you're one step closer. But then you still say, you know what, man, I'm not going to blah, blah, blah. And I'll say, you know what? I'll waive the whole thing.
Right.
I'll waive the $149 entry fee and we'll just get you on the $50 a month. Is that cool? And you're like, man, it's only $50 a month. You only have to pay. We prorate it. So today you only pay $25. You're out of here for $25. You got a year membership, and you know it's only 1 year, and then after that you can cancel it. And we would sell so many memberships. Even like you'd go in, and sometimes some people would want to pay the $149. So you like I felt terrible, but you'd let them pay it.
Yeah.
You'd be like, okay, like they'd say, how much is it? And you go, well, it's $149 to sign up, and then it's $50 a month. And they would just go, okay, cool, here's my card. I'm going to go work out, get it after I'm done. And you'd be like, but when I knew people, like I was the worst salesman because people would come in and they'd say, well, how much is it? And I go, see this book? I'm supposed to show you this and cross shit out. And I would just tell them the secret. And I'm like, but look, you really should work out here. This is the mecca of bodybuilding. It's $50 a month. You can start today for $25. Ignore all the flyers you got. And my bosses were like, you can't do that. And my membership sales were good. Like I sold a lot of memberships. I did well, but I didn't do nearly as well as the guys that hustle. They would sell like double the memberships I sold. But you know, it's like, what do you get out of something, right? What did I get out of working at Gold's Gym that nobody else got out of it? Well, I was like really good friends with The Rock when I worked there. I was really good friends with all the pro bodybuilders when I worked there. I would, invite people from all over to come in and hook them up with memberships. Like one of the things that was interesting to me is that how much money The Rock was making at the time, even at the time, he was making really good money. And he would tell everybody, this is my boy, Chris. This is before I did Bigger, Stronger, Faster, before I was like so-called anybody, right? Before I did all that. And he would introduce me to people like, oh, this is my boy, Chris. He hooked me up at Gold's. Wow. Like he'd always say that as and Tunaway, who's his like stunt double, would always be like, oh yeah, my boy Chris Bellick, he hooked us up at Gold's. He'd always like give me shout outs because I gave them a free membership. So it kind of means a lot to some people. Yeah. And so, when people say like, where did this ever get you? Where did that ever get you? I'm like, well, it got me some cool places, I think.
What years did you work there?
I worked there in 2004 That was my second stint there. My first stint was probably around 2000. So I worked there twice.
Okay.
And the first time I worked there, I sold memberships both times. So it was actually really weird, right? So the first time I worked at Gold's Gym, I quit because this is really weird, actually. I was working at Gold's Gym and I got a phone call. Shit, my phone's
phone
ringing.
call. That was great.
Yeah,
timing.
I got a phone call. It's Horseshoe. Look, bro. Well, let's answer it.
Really?
Let's do this. What's up, bro?
Yo,
What's going down, buddy? I'm doing my podcast right now.
I don't give a fuck.
I want you to be on my podcast soon.
Fuck, you listen, man. I'll fucking come tell the real fucking deal.
That's what we need to hear. We need to hear the real deal. I'm with my boy Russell. He's my producer.
I've
Russell,
heard a lot about you.
Russell.
Russell
Nice to
the
meet
Muscle.
you.
He already loves you. He doesn't even know you.
Russell.
Yep. What are you doing, man?
Fucking out selling Kratom.
Slanging Kratom, huh?
You know, I'm on my way to the fucking doctor. I got a bad heart.
You got a bad heart again?
Oh, yeah.
What's going on with it now?
Well, same shit, you know. I got to go get my INR checked.
Yeah.
If I don't get my INR checked, I'll have a stroke or potential to have a stroke.
Yeah, Horseshoe had a massive stroke due to like AFib, right? You have AFib?
I had AFib, then it progressed into ventricle tachycardia.
Yeah.
And the doctor said that's deadly, so now you got to slow down.
My wife knows all about that. She's a telemetry nurse.
Yeah. Russell's wife is a nurse. He says she knows all about that shit.
Oh, yeah. My fiance's a pharmacist.
Oh, even more than me.
What a great thing. The shadiest guy I know, his fiance is a pharmacist. Like,
Hey, listen, man. Listen, man. I got 2 shots and a fucking booster. Never got them, though.
I know how it goes, buddy.
Certified.
Well, listen, let me call you back when we're done with this. I definitely want to talk to you. I definitely want to have you on my podcast because you have the craziest life that I've ever heard in my life.
Okay, all right.
All right, buddy.
Hey,
Nice meeting you.
talk to you soon.
All right, man. All right, later.
All right, later.
That's one of the greatest.
Legend right there. Walking legend.
It's funny because I wasn't going to answer, but like he's one of the best human beings that I know. Like as far as like the things that he's done, and he's amazing. Like he was a wrestler in the WWE. Well, first of all, he was a wrestler in WCW, which was like really big at the time. It was really popular. He's 6'4", and he was 290 at the time. He was jacked, right? And he was wrestling at WCW, and then he always had drug issues. He was always like he said that he quit going to AA at 16.
Oh,
Bro,
okay.
I stopped going to AA at 16.
I get that.
He's like one of those guys. Like he's been drunk since he was like 11, right?
Yeah.
So he actually got sober from alcohol pretty young. But then he went like after he got into wrestling, he got really into opioids, and then he just went crazy on opioids. And he was doing over 100 pills a day. Then he went over to WWE, and he was kicking ass there. And he just one day went in and quit WWE because he was dating a porn star, and she made a lot of money. So he said, I don't want to do this anymore. And like, it's crazy. He's like, I would never quit. Like you'd think most people's dream would be to be in the WWE, but he was making so much money doing other things that we'll talk about on the podcast.
Yeah.
Like pimping out his porn star girlfriend.
Wow.
It's amazing. And he tells these stories.
These are open stories.
These are open stories.
These
He
are open
tells me
stories.
these stories when I'm sitting there with him and his mom. We went to a film. He was in Prescription Thugs. We went to a film festival, and he's telling this story right in front of his mom. He goes, "Yeah, that's back when I was pimping."
But
out.
has he ever told this story on like a public platform before?
He hasn't really had any public platforms to tell it on.
Is this still under the carpet or no? This story right now.
No, not really. I mean, like he said it. He's said it a million times.
Okay,
like,
good.
in public, but he would be like, he's telling me the story, and then he goes, "That's when I was pimping out my girl, back then." And his mom just like looks at him, like gives him kind of like don't like, come on, But she knows all about everything. His mom is actually really interesting too. His mom was a bigwig at General Motors.
Really?
Yeah, and she was married to she was like remarried and married to this guy who passed away, And when they were going through all his things, he was one of the biggest collectors of like Abraham Lincoln memorabilia just randomly. And so Horseshoe's mom is now the owner of one of the only 2 photographs ever taken of Abraham Lincoln. There's like 2 versions of it, and the other version's cracked. She's got the pristine version. There's like one version. It's probably worth like $30 or $40 million, but they can't find anybody to like really buy it. Like, put it this way: Horseshoe was trying to get me, because Mark knows Trump Jr. He's trying to get me to tell like Donald Trump, like, hey, tell Trump Jr. so he can tell Donald Trump and he can buy this thing because he'd really want it, you know. And I'm like, wow. You know, I'm like, that's such a weird thing to tell somebody, you know. So I never did it because he's like, I'll give you a cut, bro, you know. But yeah, and he's one of those guys that these random things just like happen to him, you know. So he had a massive stroke while he after WWE. He was doing 100 pills a day. He had a massive stroke. He recovered from the stroke, and he was in Vegas and he was selling spice. Do you know what spice is?
Not very well.
It's like a fake marijuana.
Fake weed, right?
So yeah, he was going around selling this fake weed to different smoke shops.
Military guys like it, right? And like CDL or like
I think so. Or any places where like you can't use weed or it's illegal, they would use this spice stuff. Well, then it became illegal, and when it became illegal, he basically went from making 20 grand a week selling spice to making like nothing. Like he was crushing it. He'd go around all these smoke shops and sell it, and then it became illegal. So he didn't really have like any income after that. So my friend Kelly, who owns Urban Ice Organics, hit him up and was like, well, you're a really good salesman. You go around all these smoke shops. Why don't you start selling Kratom for me? And he's like, what's Kratom? And so he tells him, and he's like, oh, it's kind of like the spice of the opiate world, you know, like it's the fake opioids basically. He's like, but it really works. It really kills pain. It really helps people a lot. And he's like, but it's also all natural, which was like a different thing than spice was not all natural, right? And it's, you know, considered fairly safe and blah, blah, blah. So Horseshoe's like, I'll try it, but I don't think it'll work. So Horseshoe tried it. And since he had been such an addict before and he found it to be very beneficial, right away he called me and he's like, have you ever tried Kratom? And I'm like, yeah, you know, I tried it when I did Prescription Thugs and stuff. I never really got anything out of it. He's like, no, bro, you got to try it the right way. And I'm like, well, what's the right way? And he's like, I don't know what you tried, but just give it another shot. You know, give it a couple weeks. He's like, how long did you take it? I said, well, I just took it once. You know, he's like, nah, you can't tell like that. You got to take it for a little while and see how you feel, whatever. And so he's the one that talked me into Kratom. I mean, The reason why I made a leap of faith was simply because of Horseshoe. Because if somebody was that bad of an opioid addict and they felt relief from something that was natural, I'm like, how could this even be possible? Right. There's no way. I mean, Horseshoe's the type of guy, like, if the syringe isn't full, it's empty. Like, that's, you know, with steroids. Yeah. You know, so it's like, he's that guy. He's the excess guy, you know. So for him to say that this is something that's really powerful for him was, like, powerful to me. And I was like, well, you're not, like, he goes, oh, you should make a movie about Kratom. And I'm like, yeah, look, I did Bigger, Stronger, Faster. That was at Sundance Film Festival. I'm not going to make a movie about your little rinky-dink supplement from, you know, like, it was almost like like, I wouldn't say offensive because he's my good friend, but almost like, what do you think I'm some sort of hack? I'm just going to make some Kratom documentary? Right. 3 months later, there I am making a Kratom documentary.
Because it was compelling once you really looked into it.
It was way more than compelling. It was like life-changing, you know? Right. And it just, for those that don't know, I mean, Kratom is just a plant that just helps you feel better, you know? Gives you a better mood, can take away some of those aches and pains that you have, and make you feel better.
Sciatica, Chris, when my sciatica is bad, I'm not the same person until I've had a couple Kratoms. And I don't have a lot a day. Like, I'm not some big, like, my volume is like between 2 to, at the most, 6 pills a day, which I think I've only had 6 a couple of times ever. I'm normally 2 to 4 pills a day, you know, not even daily. But when I need it, it's there for me.
Yeah. I do think it's really important for people to understand that it could be habit forming. You know, I think when I was making a leap of faith, there was this like big push in the world of Kratom to tell people that, like, hey, it's not addictive and it can't kill you. and you won't have any side effects with this, and it's not a drug, and it's not an opioid. And my response to that was like, well, I actually looked into this. It is a drug, because in my opinion, any supplement is a drug. If you take vitamin D, that's a drug.
Caffeine's a drug.
You're taking a pill. You're taking a pill or a liquid, or you're taking.
Sure.
Let's just call it a substance. You're taking a substance to perform an effect in your body. You're taking it for a reason.
It's a PED of sorts.
Yeah. So anything becomes a drug. If you look at the definition of drug, Kratom would fit the definition. Yeah. Is it a hardcore drug? No, it's just it's a drug, just like any of these other things that you would take. You don't eat Kratom because it tastes good.
No.
That would be the difference between a drug and a food. So some foods have healing powers, but it's just because they happen to taste good and they happen to have some healing powers to them. But I'd say most of them don't have any of that, But some plants have these really strong, what I think, like things like Kratom and other things are, I think they're really strong defense chemicals that the plant's putting out so other things don't eat it. Because when you take in Kratom, it's really, really bitter. And I think the idea is like, well, that keeps the caterpillars away, But that also makes us, puts us on a different level, mentally. So it interacts with our opioid receptors. That's the other thing, is it interacts with your opioid receptors, your mu opioid receptors. And so to say that it's not an opioid is also misleading, because it actually is an opioid. But are all opioids dangerous? No.
So it is an opioid if you had to.
So is cheese, though, right? So like cheese.
So what's the definition of an opioid?
Something that hits your something that stimulates your opioid receptors.
Oh wow! And
right?
so is cheese.
Yeah, so is cheese.
Wow.
You can say,
really
well, cheese and chocolate are opioids. Yeah, and that's also why they're what? Addictive. It's also why I say maybe it's a good idea on World Carnivore Month to cut the cheese. And I don't mean cut the cheese.
Not trying to play devil's advocate, or do you say feel free to lean into cheese if it helps you break your addiction from sugar? And sort of self-medicate with cheese? Or what do you think?
You're right. So let's look at it this way. Context is everything in every situation. Mark has a good explanation on it, where this is going to sound like the fattest thing ever, but Mark basically says like salt and fat equals sugar. And by that he means like if you're really having a crazy sugar craving and you eat enough salt and enough fat, like it'll go away. Which is weird. Like if you have, even if you had like a slice of my keto pizza, like that whole sweet, like I might have a sweet tooth. Like I really want cake right now. But if I had something like really fatty, really salty, I just wouldn't want that anymore. Piece of bacon. Bacon's a great example.
Is that the hack then, right? If you're a guy like me and you suffer from, being obese and I'm not trying to give myself an escape route, but I do deal with nighttime binge eating disorder, right? Mm-hmm. That's it's a thing. You can Google it. Some medical thing will come up, and you can say that's just willpower. That's all in your head. And congratulations, you're right. You're right.
Yeah.
But if I'm wanting to deal with the carbs are coming out with this, if I just go ahead and cook 3 eggs and have some eggs with some salt on it. It takes 6 minutes.
Don't you think though, like if something's all in your head, it still could be a syndrome or a, like, you know what I mean? Like it's still a real thing. Like just because it's in your head doesn't mean, it may not exist as a disease, but like you said, like I know it's in my head, but like I got to fix it. But the way,
congratulations, that's what every addiction is.
Yeah, every addiction's in your head.
Right.
Everyone, like you don't need anything. So yeah, it's interesting to look at it that way. Like the way that you're looking at it is, I think, yeah, but I think the hack is like, it depends on where you're coming from. Like if you're looking at it like my point of view, where I'm like, I have autoimmune issues and I'm trying to get rid of them. Right. And I really want to just eliminate everything in my diet, including like heavy cream and whatever. I don't even know if it makes sense to not include heavy cream. And here's why. Most people, it might even make more sense to just exclude cheese for the month, and the difference is pretty clear once you can see it. If you have butter or if you have heavy cream, those don't have protein in them. They have zero protein in them. So when you eat those dairy products, they may be just as, like they might jive with your system just as well as beef does or any sort of meat does, because a lot of people that have allergies to milk or dairy, they have an actual allergy to casein protein, which is the protein that's in the milk,
not the lactose sugar,
not the fat. No,
not,
well, there's also lactose intolerance,
and that's sugar.
Which is different because that's the sugar, which would only be found in like milk and yogurts and things that actually use like milk.
Gotcha.
But heavy cream, you got to remember, they're just skimming the cream off the top. They're just simply skimming the cream off the top, so there's no sugar in it. Butter, they're taking this cream, skimming it off the top, mixing it with salt, and smashing it together. So that's all that butter is, and that's all that heavy cream is. So maybe it may make sense for me to keep in heavy cream and butter during Carnivore Month, and just like literally just cut out cheese, because cheese has protein, and that may be causing, you know, some of these little inflammation issues or skin issues or whatever other issues that, you know, dairy can seem to cause for people. But I definitely would say cut out cheese and high fat dairy that's also high in protein for the month of carnivore. If your goal is to eliminate things, that would just help eliminate one more thing that could be a possible roadblock, you know? But yeah, it's interesting, right? That like these things are like opioids, and these things have addictive qualities to them, you know? And back to what we were talking about Kratom, I think we should continue on that, because it's a great topic. And you know, another thing is like we actually sell Kratom. I don't sell it personally, but I represent Mind Bullet. Mark and his wife own it, and I'm sort of like the rep, you know, the face behind Mind Bullet. And you know, so it's hard to say like, oh yeah, I'm going to be unbiased about it and give you my opinion, because I see that, you know, all over the internet people are selling something and they're on their YouTube channel preaching about it and selling it. I don't really have any problem with that, as long as the person really believes in what they're selling. Like I really believe in Kratom. I've been, you know, pushing it for years. I mean, I'm the only person to ever go on, the only person in the entire world to ever go on Joe Rogan's podcast and talk exclusively about Kratom for 90 minutes, you know?
Right.
So I really, really believe in it. And before any of this, like when I went on Joe Rogan, I didn't have a Kratom product, which was stupid because I could have sold millions of dollars worth of Kratom. But I didn't have a Kratom product then. I wasn't pushing it as a product. I was just talking about it because it was something that was like really beneficial to me. So it is hard to push something when you do have some sort of like financial association with it. But I wish I could show people how much money I actually make from Kratom, because, you know, it's definitely less than $500 a month that I make off of it. Like I make barely anything off of it. So I think that that's something that, it's not like, well, you make, you know, it's still $500. Like, you know, whatever. You can make those arguments, but I'm really into it because I love it, because I have actually found it to be very, very, very beneficial. And I do like being transparent. I do like being transparent with people about how it could also be habit forming. Like I've seen a lot of people take a lot of it, and they get addicted to it, you know? And I would think the reason why they get addicted to it is because every single case of addiction that I've ever personally seen with Kratom have come with really, really high quantities. So people would take, you know, a good dosage of Kratom, like a really good dosage would be like 5 to 7 grams. That's a good, solid, big ass dose of Kratom.
At one point or throughout the day?
So and this is just personal for me, so I'm not giving any recommendations. I'm not a doctor. For me, I would take 7.5 grams in capsules. So that would be like 10 capsules. I would take 10 capsules of it in the morning, once a day. It would get all the cobwebs out. It'd like allow me to like move, and it would give me mobility that would last for about 5 hours. And then, yeah, by the end of the day, I might be back in pain again. But I would just always say, like, it's not worth it for me to be addicted to something again. So I'm just going to take it once and like leave it there.
Well, that's what I do. I have 2 pills, and for me, for whatever reason, because I have, you know, you've lifted more weights. Me being heavy, I've hurt my body a little bit, but with all the powerlifting and your hips and stuff, you need more.
Well, I also may have an opioid tolerance due to the amount of opioids I've used in my life before that were pharmaceutical grade.
It's true. So for me, I've never been a person that's used opioids before. I take 2 breakfast, lunch, and near end of dinner, and that gets me through till I wake up.
Yeah.
And I haven't been taking them. I haven't been taking my nighttime dose super religiously lately because I haven't been, my sciatica's not flaring up right now. But when it is, I go, okay, now I know I got this, and I keep it near me, and I never knew how much chronic pain was a life breaker.
Yeah,
I used to always hear my brother talk about his shoulder and his neck, and when you hear someone say the same thing over and over again, you stop it in your mind. It devalues.
Mm-hmm.
You eventually stop putting a lot of priority. But even though I've heard him say it 100 times, it still hurts just as much as the first time he said it. And then I saw my wife hurt her neck. My wife threw out her she slipped a disc,
mm-hmm.
and to watch her deal with that chronic pain for just a month, to see her in the corner of the bedroom crying because she's just in this pain's flaring and it just won't go away. I mean, I don't think as a society we give people that deal with chronic pain enough of a. I mean, what are you going to do? You guys still live, you guys still move, but I don't think in society we give people with chronic pain enough credit for what they're really dealing with.
Yeah, one of the things I want to work on, I don't know if it's actually viable or not, but I do have the things available to me to be able to work on it. I was thinking of trying to work on a Kratom Topical. I haven't seen anybody do that yet. I just don't know if it would work, right? Like CBD, a lot of people give a lot of, hey, I use CBD and it really works. So what I was actually thinking of is, and I've done this before, I just didn't do it for a long enough period of time to see how it worked, but I'm thinking of doing it now as we're talking, is I would mix Kratom powder, because it also comes in powder form, mix Kratom powder with DMSO. DMSO is something that it allows things to penetrate your skin. So first of all, it helps a lot with pain. Like I gave Mark DMSO because his shoulder was really bothering him, and you rub the DMSO on, and the pain goes from being like unbearable and a big pain in the ass to like I barely feel it. Like, it's not. It's like one of those things. It's like not one of those 100% cures, but it gets you close enough to be okay and be moving around again.
Takes a 6 or a 7 down to a 2.
But what DMSO also does, which is amazing, Dan Duchesne, the steroid guru, used to use this for all the women bodybuilders. He used to use DMSO with Yohimbe. Yohimbe burns body fat below the belly button really good. So from like the belly button to like, to like the pubic bone, I guess you'd call it.
Really?
Like that little area there that like women have a real hard time, the fupa, where the fupa grows, right?
The muffin top, I've heard it called.
Yohimbe burns fat there, specific, like that type of fat that deposits there really well for some weird reason. So Dan Duchesne used to rub DMSO because it allows things to penetrate your skin.
Isn't that called visceral fat?
Yeah, visceral fat. But yeah, I forget what the name of the there's like a name for it of stuff that you can rub on your skin. Transdermal. It's a transdermal.
Okay.
Is what it is. So it's a DMSO is a transdermal where if you rub it on your skin and then you mix it with something else, like say sugar, the sugar would go right into your bloodstream. Do you know what I'm saying? Like your skin would just absorb it.
Is this something for sale that you can get like on Amazon?
DMSO?
Yeah. Or what your buddy's talking about for the visceral fat that he used to give out to his clients.
Well, you could buy Yohimbe. You would buy Yohimbe online.
Yohimbe.
Yeah, you'd buy Yohimbe and then you'd mix Yohimbe with DMSO. But here's the rub on that. I don't think it would work for anybody in our position. Like we would have too much. I don't know. I could be wrong. I think that like what you use it for
I'm
is
going to
like
bathe in this, and we're going to lose a lot.
Yeah,
of
you
weight,
could.
Chris.
Yeah, maybe. But what I'm thinking it works better for is like for people that have like 1% body fat to lose for bodybuilding shit.
Right.
Like, I feel like it would tighten you up.
That final cut.
Yeah, I think it would tighten you up. But I don't know. I mean, maybe it does work for women. Yohimbe works great. Like for women, it's like they say that's a trouble area for them, and they go on a diet and they have a really hard time losing that weight. Taking some Yohimbe can help that. Well, what it helps with, this is interesting. Yohimbe really helps with, and this is probably why it helps burn fat down there. It's basically like a boner pill. Like Yohimbe is Yohimbe is like a what do you call it? Like a Viagra kind of type thing.
Now, for me, being a fat, is this hard with this? Is there, I'm not asking you to pretend to be a doctor right now, but is there any like glaring like heart risk issues?
I don't know if there's heart risks, but I can't take Yohimbe because I'm allergic to it. So there's some people that get, like, if I take Yohimbe, I feel like I'm really ill, like really nauseous. I've taken, there's been times where I've experimented with gas station boner pills, and they've made me like, I can't take those either because they have Yohimbe in them.
I've never tried them. I've never tried boner pill. I've always wanted to.
They have Yohimbe in them.
I need to get on some boner pills.
Yeah, I tried a lot of boner pills because I used to be an opioid addict, and when you're an opioid addict, shit doesn't work. You know.
Can I get like definitely since the TRT, the ED's not what it was, but it's I ain't 22 anymore, Chris.
Yeah,
I'd love to. Can I talk to the doctor about Dr. Whitmer when I meet with him next week about some boner pills?
So erectile dysfunction, like if you wanted to get a prescription for like Viagra or Cialis, first of all.
What about that blue stuff?
Well, I'm gonna tell you, buddy.
I'm sorry, Chris. I'm so excited right now. I'm so excited to fix my boners.
You can get all that stuff through like Blue Chew, like bluechew.com.
Okay.
They're not a sponsor. Just go to like bluechew.com. Those medicines are generic now, so they're pretty easy to get, and they're like a lot less expensive. So like Blue Chew, what they did, which is brilliant, is like they made like a little chewable that has the medication in it, so it tastes good, and you'll take it because it's not a bottle of pills. It's like a bottle of Starbursts, So there's a company like Blue Chew. There's another company called Roman that does this. But if you ask Dr. Whitmer, who our TRT clinic that Russell and I go to is called Whitmer
Rejuvenation Clinic.
Rejuvenation Clinic, right? Yeah, Whitmer. They just changed the name. It used to be called National Rejuvenation Center, and Jeff and Michael Whitmer is the doctor. Jeff is his son. Jeff's my friend who I talk to all the time. But those guys are great. They should be able to prescribe it to you anyway. And they could probably prescribe a generic one that's cheap, but you should either get like a Cialis or a Viagra. I have a feeling that like Cialis seems to be like safer and effective for like more like everyday use. Like you're married, so like it's not like for me, I'm single, so if I wanted to get like Viagra, like it's like a one-shot deal. Like I'd be like, okay, I'm going to use this. But it seems like people that take it more often, like because they're having sex more often, would use like a lower dose Cialis. Like it might even use a low dose Cialis that could actually help you with a lot of things with your diet and weight loss, because it improves blood flow. Like it's not a bad thing. Like taking Tony Huge, Dr. Tony Huge, who's not a real doctor, but he's awesome and knows a lot of shit.
He's a doctor in my eyes.
Well, he recommends that I take. He recommended that I take Cialis every day, and I'm like, well, I don't even have a girlfriend. Like, why would I do that? And he's like, well, just because like all the stuff you do and like the blood flow benefits and whatever. And it's a really low dose, like maybe 10 to 15, maybe it's 20 milligrams or something.
So with my lymphedema, do you think that would help with my circulation issue?
I don't know. I can't tell you because, again, I'm not a doctor, but I think it helps with everything like that.
I should really look into that.
Yeah.
I'm going to talk to him. I get my blood work done next week, and then I'll schedule a follow-up appointment with him.
The one thing that I'm trying to figure out with, like, Dr. Lyon and some other people is, like, I have that same thing. Like, this is crazy, and this is weird, and this is, like, proof that a carnivore diet's really effective for somebody like me. If you just let me go eat whatever I wanted for 2 weeks, right? I'm like right now I'm in some of the best shape of my life. And in 2 weeks, it wouldn't even take 2 weeks. It would probably take like 3 or 4 days. If I started eating like, I'll tell you something, I know flares it up right away. Tasty cakes. They're one of the best things on the planet. You ever have tasty cakes?
I've never heard of it. That must be an East Coast thing.
It's a total East Coast thing, and you're lucky that you've never heard of it.
Yeah, I mean, they have...
you know all like the Hostess stuff, like Twinkies and stuff? Yeah. It's like that, but way better. It's like all... Remember I was telling you about those Entenmann's cookies?
Yes.
That I used to eat? Yeah, it's like that. Like look up Tasty Cakes and you'll see they're awesome. Like so when I was on a trip across the country and I was eating Tasty Cakes because I was with my friend Jimmy Bluff. We were on like a tour. He's like a bodywork guy. And he was like, hey man, we got to get some Tasty Cakes, because we're on the East Coast. We got some and I ate them and like literally we ate the whole box of them. But the next day my calves and ankles were swollen up so much that there's probably about an inch of fluid, like a half inch. No, probably about a half inch. I don't want to.
These look nice,
but probably like a half inch of fluid.
Those look delicious, Chris.
Yeah, there's these butterscotch Tasty Cake things,
and they look great.
They're amazing.
Yeah,
but like I would be able to push into my
your
skin.
edema. You'd have edema.
Edema, yeah, and edema would be so deep that would be like a half inch thick. It was disgusting. I have pictures of it.
Well, see, that's what messed up my leg is I had edema, and then I got bit by a spider.
Yeah.
And my circulation was so bad, it almost killed me, man.
Yeah.
I started getting red, and I really didn't know what it was, and I called in. They were like, it's probably not a big deal. And I wake up the next day, it's pretty bad. I go see a doctor. I make an appointment that day to go see a doctor, and he's like, oh yeah, this is pretty bad. And you need to leave here right now and drive yourself to the ER. I go to the ER. They're stacked. This was years ago before all madness now. There wasn't a bed available in the hospital. I'm at the ER for like 8 hours with a pretty decent cellulitis infection. I'm still really naive. I don't know really where that goes to. I don't know what happens next.
Yeah.
And they're like, we don't have a bed for you. Do you want to, we can put a bed out here in the hallway all night long. That's how bad it was. All the ER rooms were filled. All the rooms upstairs were filled, so they were just stacking beds on the hallway between the doors.
Yeah.
And I'm like, nah, fuck that. I'm going home. I go home. I wake up the next day, and my pee is like practically brown. My shin is starting to blister, super red. By the time I get to the hospital ER, I almost can't walk from the car to the front door. Like I'm not trying to exaggerate. But I was at that point where I was like, wow. I could really see passing out right now. Like I wasn't on the door of it, but it was on the horizon. Like walking just this 20 yards has never been this hard before.
Yeah.
And then that started about a 2-year journey or a 2-month journey of me just taking antibiotics every day through an IV to kill it.
And that sucks because antibiotics like really weaken the body. Like they're not like antibiotics are great to get rid of things when they're going to kill us, and that's probably the point that you were at.
Right.
But they also they do a lot to just destroy you too. I've seen just so many people get have issues from taking antibiotics, especially for like long periods of time.
And when you're super heavy, they need a higher dosage to be effective.
There's an antibiotic that causes. There's one called Cipro, which I believe is that an antibiotic. Can you look that up, Cipro?
Cipro?
I believe it's an antibiotic. But anyway, Cipro causes people's Achilles tendon to just snap, and it happens very, very often. So like The Rock had that happen. He was off his feet for 12 weeks. He was on crutches for 12 weeks because he tore his Achilles tendon. Not because of Cipro, but it could have been like if he had some sort of infection before that and he had taken that. It really weakens the Achilles tendon.
It's wild because I popped my Achilles tendon shortly after. My left Achilles tendon. It didn't complete.
Were you on Cipro?
I don't know which one I was on, but it didn't completely rupture, but it 1,000,000% popped, and I've never trusted it fully since.
Yeah,
and
that's some serious pain too.
It laid me out. I was walking through the gym in my apartment complex, and all of a sudden I just hear this. I hear this pop, and I feel this like bump in my left calf, and I was off my feet for weeks.
So yeah, back to my transdermal story. We were talking about Kratom. I was thinking if you did Kratom with like DMSO, which is a transdermal and also fights pain, that you might have a pretty cool product there. Like the only problem with DMSO, it's really weird. I'm trying to see if there's some that you can avoid this. It's got a funny smell to it. Like first of all, it smells a little bit funny, but it makes it can make your breath stink. Look at this.
I wonder if that's the one I was taking.
May increase a person's risk of tendonitis or tendon rupture. right? So if you're a bodybuilder, powerlifter, whatever, you want to be really careful about taking Cipro. But what is Cipro? Is it a antibiotic, or is it a? Just can you type in is Cipro an antibiotic? Or you typed in dangerous antibiotics.
Okay.
I don't know what the hell you typed in.
Hey, listen, I never pretended to be a good typer.
Yeah, Cipro's an antibiotic. Yep. Okay, so just like everything else, so Russell, I'm always right.
That's true.
So Cipro, yeah, that will cause that. But anyway, what I was talking about with Kratom, to get back to talking about Kratom, is something that I posted today that I find really interesting. It doesn't really have to do with Kratom, but it has to do with athletes and pain. And Kratom is still wide open for athletes to use. And I don't know why more athletes aren't using Kratom. To me, it seems ridiculous. It's the only performance-enhancing supplement out there on the market. Like the one thing that could really enhance your performance. Like, yeah, creatine can enhance your performance. We know that. Caffeine can enhance your performance. We know that. And I think Kratom's like one of the only other things that you can take for an instant benefit where you actually will feel it right away. And it is not banned by the World Anti-Doping Association. I don't know why more athletes aren't on the Kratom bandwagon, and why every time I post something about it, people in the comments, they get all mad. I feel like there's an anti-Kratom like association of people out there, or people that have gotten addicted to it and now they're all mad at it. It's like people act like I am posting about fentanyl when I post about Kratom.
I think it's a morality judgment. I think there's this real like Puritanian drive in our culture to want to say you shouldn't be allowed to, like, you should just suffer in silence.
Yeah,
anything
and
that's
they
sort
say
of
it
against
from
that.
their iPhone.
Yes.
And that's the problem.
Yes.
Is that they're all hypocrites, because you want to be like moral and say like, oh, you shouldn't have this and you shouldn't have that. It's like,
it's a virtue
we are
signaling
so
thing.
privileged.
Yes.
And okay. There's a point in time I had a girlfriend that I was going to marry. Her name was Carolyn. She was an amazing person, but one of the things was, why was I telling this story? Oh, it's like she was always against me being on testosterone, right? This when I was making Bigger, Stronger, Faster in the very beginning of it. I was dating this girl. We were like really serious. We were at a restaurant. It was me, Mark, Andy, and Carolyn. And we were filming Bigger, Stronger, Faster. I was at like a Denny's with Mark and her, and we were talking, and I'm like, yeah, well, you know, back when I first tried testosterone, like I didn't really know what I was doing. I said some sentence like that. And she's like, you took testosterone? Oh my God, I can't believe it. And she started crying, and she got up and she ran out of the restaurant. And I'm like, wait, where are you going? I'm like, hold on, I'll be right back. I got to go talk to her. And I went and talked to her, and she was like inconsolable that I had tried steroids. And she's like, you would inject steroids into your body? Oh my God, I can't believe you would ever have done that, and not you never told me about it. And like, oh my God. And I'm like, you know, I tried it for like a couple weeks, and I did like 3 shots of it, and that was it. And I'm trying to explain to her, like, no, I'm not like a steroid guy. Like, you know, my brother is. I'm not that guy.
Right.
I was trying to explain to her. She's inconsolable. Same girl. 3 years later, I get my hips completely replaced. We had just finished Bigger, Stronger, Faster. We're about to go to Sundance with it. I just had my hips completely replaced, and I asked her, I said, hey, I'm going to go to this doctor to talk about testosterone replacement. And just so you know, he may prescribe it to me because it's one of the number one things. Like, he's telling me that if I get on testosterone and growth hormone, that it can really help regrow the bone, you know? And she's like, so? And I'm like, well, I don't want you to freak out if he puts me on that and I have to take that. I don't want you like running away going like, I can't believe you'd inject that. And she's like, oh, I don't care about that. That's from a doctor. That was the only difference.
Right.
and she didn't care. And I did it, you know. And when I did it, I was actually, my doctor looked. So I asked my doctor, should I take growth hormone and testosterone if like a anti-aging doctor or, you know, one of these other doctors, a hormone doctor, if they prescribe it, should I take it post-surgery? My doctor was also an athlete. He had held some master records in track and stuff. He said, absolutely not. You can get a blood clot and you could die. And I said, okay. And then I went to Dr. Mark Gordon, who Joe Rogan always talks about. Dr. Mark Gordon's like, that's ridiculous. Most ridiculous thing I ever heard. Turn around. I turn around and he jabs a needle of testosterone in my ass. And I'm like, don't you need to do my blood work first? And he's like, no, this is America. Doctors go by symptoms. It's like the only doctor I've ever met that was like, just no bullshit. Like, he's like, no, we go by symptoms here. I can treat you with anything I want. Like, I'm a doctor, you know? Yeah. And I'm like, wow, that's cool, man. Like, he's just saying,
I'm a doctor.
I'm allowed to treat you with whatever I want.
That's great.
You know? He's like, now, if I was writing these crazy prescriptions for hundreds of people, like, yeah, they might come look into me, but I can give you a shot of testosterone right now. There's no problem with that. But I just thought I think it's fascinating how there is this moral judgment on it. But if it comes from a doctor, it's okay. And I would say the same thing would happen in a lot of families. Like if you came home with a prescription for Oxycontin or fentanyl or, Vicodin or Dilaudid or any of these drugs, right? You come home with a prescription from it. I think anybody would think it's fine. But if you came home with a bottle of Kratom, now all of a sudden you're some renegade, crazy person who's, you know. But if it's weed, somehow we've been coaxed into thinking like, well, that's all like mellow and cool, like so like we're kind of like okay with weed now, pretty much, right? But then still these things like Kratom pop up, and they're looked at as so bad. But Kratom has gotten me out of misery, man. Like I was miserable. When I'm in pain, I'm an asshole. When I'm in pain, I'm not nice to people. When I'm in pain, I'm not a good person. I can't be who I want to be. And that's the worst thing about pain. And so if I found something that can help relieve that pain, no matter how happy it makes me, it does make me happy too. It doesn't cause me to do anything negative. All it does is contribute to the positive. Everything I do on Kratom is better. I'm nicer. I'm stronger. I feel better. I'm faster. Like, you know, name it. And it's going to be better on Kratom for me.
Right.
And so I don't think anybody should be able to like just come and take that away from us, you know? And there's nothing else like it. I mean, like Advil and Tylenol don't offer those same benefits. Advil and Tylenol do nothing to stimulate the brain to make you feel like they do stimulate the brain because they all work on the brain, but they do nothing to stimulate the what should I say, the attitude, the personality,
mood. It's not a
mood enhancer. When I take Kratom, like I'm a nicer, happier, better person in my opinion.
I mean, I've been pretty quiet about. In the last 4 or 5 years, I've become a cannabis user. Mm-hmm. Mostly because my anxiety and mood and soreness was out of control. People could say, well, just take CBD if you're talking about having sore ankles and stiff back and stuff like that. But I don't take massive doses. I'm not just getting cranked 3 times, 5 times a day. A little bit helps my mood, makes me a little bit less irritable when my kids are flipping out. It makes it a little easier for me to stretch. That's the most amazing thing about the Kratom and I would say cannabis. I'm able to stretch.
You know what else really helps with that, which I'm going to help you out with, is mushrooms. Man, if you take a little bit of mushrooms and you start moving around.
Yes, now we're talking.
The amount of mobility that you can get out of the mobility psilocybin mushrooms is amazing.
It's when I am at my stiffest and I really need to try to like unlock my lower back, unlock my calves and my hamstrings. A little extra Kratom, a little bit of cannabis, and I can get into stretches that I otherwise would not be able to get into.
You guys might find this funny, but I walked around my apartment in a full squat, which is like really hard for me to like even get down to a full squat most of the time. I took a magical amount of mushrooms. I took like 6-7 grams of magic mushrooms.
Yes.
It sent me to the moon. And then I was like, wow, I feel really good. I feel like there's no pain in my body. Wow, I can squat right down. And I squatted down and I was like like walking around in a full squat, like all around my apartment
Wow.
with like no pain. And then like I sat down on the ground and I was able to do that sort of like a groin stretch, like
Yes.
a butterfly stretch. I'm like,
Yes.
how am I in this position? I can't get in this position like any other way. It just allows things to open up. It allows your body to forget. For example, my shoulder's always held in this like protective position. It's always trying to be protected, but I guess you lose like the inhibitions when you take mushrooms, and all of a sudden like that just relaxes.
It's like I feel the stretch, but it doesn't come with the same pain. It doesn't come with the same pain signals.
Yes.
I feel like I just feel the muscle and the tendon being tugged, but there isn't that immediate sharp pain that comes with it.
To me, it's really fascinating what it can do. And to go back to athletes using Kratom, like, is Kratom a performance enhancing drug? I think it's one of the best performance enhancing drugs overall, like out of anything that you could possibly take. I mean, it's going to work almost as good as Adderall for people like, people like looking to enhance their performance. It's going to work. I just think by killing pain, you enhance performance. I think a lot of people don't get that connection. If I killed all your aches and pains before you do a big lift, you're going to crush it. I would actually venture to say that I think Kratom in the short term is even more performance enhancing than testosterone. Like if I gave you a shot of testosterone and sent you in the gym a week later, you might be a little bit stronger. But if I gave you like a mind bullet, like potion, and you went into the gym and lifted in an hour, it would be like boom.
I've never tried one of those yet.
Oh man.
I should try one.
Are you going to work out today?
I am.
I'll give you one today.
I'll try one today.
Yeah, the only problem is they're a little bit pricey, and we're trying to bring the price down by having other manufacturers. We're looking at some different people to like maybe see if we can bring the price down, because they're just expensive for us even. And I like to try to get things in a good price range so that we can we can get it to more people. We can help more people that way. But the one thing I really wanted to talk about was that today the World Anti-Doping Association, they came out with some new laws, some new rules that people have to live by. And WADA is like the major organization that all the Olympic committees, go to. It's like WADA and USADA, which is the U.S. Anti-Doping Association, which usually follows WADA's rules. Now, WADA, which does all the drug testing for the Olympics, just banned BPC 157, which we know that a ton of athletes use for recovery. We see all sorts of people from like Ben Greenfield to Joe Rogan to Dave Asprey, to Mark Bell. I mean, you name the influencer, and they're telling you that BPC 157 could really help you. Andrew Huberman, who has the biggest health and fitness podcast on the planet, is a strong proponent of BPC 157, although he often mistakes it and calls it GPC 157, which I find really funny because he's a really smart-ass doctor, and he messed it up all over Mark's podcast. And I think on Rogan, too. But anyway, despite that, he's a brilliant guy. BPC 157 is something that can like help rebuild joints and help rebuild like tendons and joints and help really connective tissue.
What is this kind of? What is this?
It's an injectable peptide.
It's a peptide.
Yeah, and corticosteroids have also been banned. Do you remember Kurt Schilling? Look up Kurt Schilling sock on your computer here. Pull it up. Show the people at home, Russell.
Show the people.
So Kurt Schilling was pitched in the World Series for the Red Sox, and he basically couldn't pitch anymore because he had this problem with his foot, and they had to operate on it, and his foot was all bloody. I don't know if people remember the bloody sock, but Kurt Schilling with his bloody sock.
Ooh.
Yeah. So he basically had like stitches in his foot, and he had something go on with it, but they basically had to shoot him up with a bunch of corticosteroids before the game. If you watch Bigger, Stronger, Faster, they talk about Andre Agassi in the French Open, or one of the big open tennis things, that he had a 20-minute cortisone shot before the game. When Terrell Owens was going to play in the Super Bowl, there were people outside chanting, "Give him the shot, give him the shot, give him the shot," about Terrell Owens, because they wanted the doctors to inject Terrell Owens with a corticosteroid so they could play in the game. So they're literally rooting for this doctor to like give him the shot so that he could be cleared and play in this game.
What other shot they're given? They were given like some epidural shot. I don't remember the exact name of it. I don't. It's
Well, that's what Agassi had in his back. He had a cortisone like epidural in his back.
well, this was when my eldest son Ryan was born, and they said the nurse that was giving her the shot brought it up that this is when they talk about the shot in the NFL when it just removes all pain.
Oh, they might have been talking about Toradol.
Toradol.
I believe Toradol.
That's the one. You're so smart, Chris.
I believe Toradol is already banned by WADA.
Okay.
Look that up. Is Toradol banned by WADA?
Because the NFL was using it at some point.
I believe the NFL
sure.
still uses it, but the NFL doesn't go by WADA. The NFL's smart. They have a great PR program instead of a drug program. And the way that they have a PR program is that they jumped ahead. Like back in 1989, the NFL started testing for steroids. So they were like way ahead of the game, you know? They got out in front of it where baseball didn't ever get out in front of it. And that's why the government told baseball, you guys have to test. But they never told the NFL they had to test. If the government ever came down on the NFL, there would be a big issue. So what is Toradol NFL? See, it says NFL players urged to limit Toradol use, but it's not. Did you say, did you look up, is Toradol banned by WADA was what I was looking for. I don't know where that came from.
I'm sorry. I my bad, y'all.
Just type
Listening's
in
hard.
WADA. Does it say? Is tramadol banned a substance? What 4 substances are banned by WADA during WADA competition? Androgens, blood doping, peptide hormones. Oh, those are just types of drugs. I think I do believe Toradol is on the banned list already. It's just crazy to me that Kratom's not on there. The other thing that's not banned on there, which is really interesting, is ibogaine. Because we know that ibogaine, first of all, it can't be tested for. And secondly, it could actually get rid of a lot of issues that people have with pain. And so I find that really interesting. Oh, you can search it. Search just so we're positive here. Search on there where it says you can search Kratom. See if it pops up. And then
is that right? Kratom?
Yeah. No search results, right? Now type in ibogaine. IBOGAINE.
Maybe I'm not doing it right.
Well, no, you're searching the whole site and nothing's coming. Type in testosterone. We'll know if you're not doing it right if nothing comes up.
I don't think I'm doing it
right. You have like a thing on the end of it, don't you?
Is that right? Yeah, right here. Doping with
yeah. So
this is pulling up things.
Yeah, when you search testosterone, 63 things come up. When you search Kratom, 0 things come up.
Right.
That would show you that it's not on the list. Now, if you type in Toradol, did that come up, or did you spell it wrong?
I think I'm pretty sure I copied and pasted that in. I think I got it right.
Maybe it's not banned. Maybe that's another thing. I think it's an I, isn't it? Is it an I?
You're going to find out real fast. That is the thing I'm absolutely the worst in doing in this entire universe is spelling.
Toradol. No, T-O-R-A. T-O-R-A.
D-O-L-E. Or D-O-L. Yeah, that's it. T-O-R-A-D-O-L. That's what I got here. T-O-R-A-D-O-L. Search.
Yeah, nothing.
I
wonder if... Let me see. Well, anyway, regardless, I believe that Toradol is not allowed to be used in the Olympics, but I could be wrong. I don't really know, but it really does surprise me that more athletes don't take advantage of Kratom, not only for its pain relieving effects, but for its performance enhancing effects. The other thing that they got rid of is albuterol, and albuterol works sort of like Clenbuterol. Have you heard of Clenbuterol?
I've heard of it, but I don't know what it does.
People being on Clen. Yeah. Clen's like a fat burner. Oh. So it's also like a bronchodilator. I think albuterol is the same thing, bronchodilator. But those bronchodilators that open up your lungs and stuff, those also can enhance your performance by making your reaction time quicker, making you a little more twitchy, like a little bit more speedy. I don't know how.
Other than a competitive edge, is there any downsides on your body?
To what?
to Clenbuterol or those?
Oh, Clenbuterol is horrible for your heart.
Okay.
And I would imagine that like albuterol in big abusive dosages would be bad for your heart too. I know that people have used albuterol in place of Clenbuterol. So like say you didn't have Clenbuterol and you're a bodybuilder and you needed something to help you burn a little bit more fat, you might go take albuterol instead of taking Clenbuterol. But for the most part, I just think it really just comes in those, it's those huffers, those asthma huffers. They're illegal. You know, so imagine like you have a kid with asthma and they're like, your kid can't play anymore because they can't. I mean, they're not doing it in youth sports, but if they were in something high level athletics, like it may be banned, you know? And I would think it probably wouldn't matter until you got to a college level. But still, that's pretty wild that like, you know, this everyday mist is like now interpreted as a performance enhancing drug. I always used to make the joke that in the future, we're going to see these stadiums and it's going to be like these brand new, beautiful stadiums like they have like in Santa Clara. Like that stadium's beautiful. It's like brand
Levi
new.
Stadium.
And it's all these beautiful people that are wealthy and beautiful and have nice clothes. They're all wearing jerseys. They all have perfect teeth and nice hair and beautiful families. And like you're in this beautiful place. And pretty soon the whole crowd's going to be beautiful. And the people on the field are going to be small and worthless,
right?
Because they're not allowed to take anything,
right?
You know, so I always like joke that like, what a weird society that we live in. That if you're in the crowd, you know, you can do anything to look better, to be better. But if you're on the field, you're not allowed to. You know, and it's really interesting because it's what are the crowd? The crowd are the people paying for it. So to say, well, the audience just wants to make sure it's fair. But the audience doesn't want anything to be fair on their own self. You know what I mean? Like I want the advantage of having nicer sneakers than you have. Well, so I'm going to work harder to get those.
That goes even to a deeper conversation, not to throw off what you're saying, but there's starting to be a point where classism, where, I mean, I'm not trying to be all super like social justice warrior here, but a lot of people I know can't afford to go to those Niner games anymore.
Yeah.
You know, they're just too expensive.
Yeah, well, they're trying to class people out of it.
I mean,
they're trying to make
it's a money grab.
They're trying to make it an exclusive. You make everything exclusive, you know. They were just talking about that with like Austin, Texas. You know, like Tim Dillon was saying. I thought this was an amazing quote from our boy Tim Dillon. He's like, Austin is for dirtbags. And if you're a dirtbag, you're rare now. Like now in Austin, you're rare. It's like This place is overrun with Tesla employees and you know, like people who should actually be in Los Angeles,
right? But
they're here chasing their dream instead because they don't realize that there is no dream here. Like there's no industry here that's like LA. Like when you go to LA, everything's the film industry. And he's like, so all these people are like rushing here and like, I'll just get a job at Terry Black's waiting tables. And then, you know, 6 years later, they're at Terry Black's waiting tables because there's nowhere for them to go. I just find it to be like really interesting and funny that he put it in those.
Yeah, he's a national treasure.
Yeah, like Tim Dillon.
Joe Rogan says.
Yeah, and if people aren't
a national treasure,
if people aren't listening to Tim Dillon, I think they need to start because he's.
Did you hear? You heard his podcast, right? He was talking about what was that guy? Remember you told me about Dino
Tomasetti, the bodybuilder. He talked about the bodybuilder who tried to kill his parents.
Oh, that's rough.
And all that stuff like
that's
that.
Rough.
Yeah. That's a crazy, you know, they're going to want to blame it on a drug. The reason why you would say, so this bodybuilder killed his parents in Long Island, tried to kill his parents in Long Island. They both actually survived. He shot his mom in the head and his dad in the back. And his family's all tied to the mob. It just sounds like a really, really insane story. But you know that the reason why they put that he's a bodybuilder in there is they haven't asserted anything yet because they don't have any evidence, but you know that steroids are going to come into it. And you know steroids are going to be a big part of the trial. And if he had anything to do, I'm sure if he lives in Long Island and he's a bodybuilder, that he also has something to do with dealing steroids. I'm sure that's going to come into play. And he was like a strong guy. Like I went to his YouTube channel and I saw him do 725 for 2 on a deadlift. And then he did a 500-pound bench. So he's actually like a strong guy, but
legit strong kid.
But he snapped or something.
Yeah,
something bad happened. But they're gonna want to blame it on steroids, and like that's, you know, the thing is with like blaming things on drugs, I think is never like it never fares well for anybody. Like if somebody's on cocaine and they go and shoot up a place, it's not, you know what I mean? It's like it doesn't take away from what the person did, and it doesn't make it, it might, the only thing it may provide is some sort of like reason, some sort of like motive, right? Like maybe the kid was on Trenbolone, you know, and if you look at Trenbolone, which is just a really powerful steroid, there are a lot of things. Like I think all steroids should be legal and people should be able to use whatever they want. And even Trenbolone, it's really, you know, but the problem I have with Trenbolone is it's like the one that seems to be the asshole drug. It seems to be the one where the more people than not, like if you hear any sort of roid rage story, roid rage doesn't exist. It's something that the media made that up. Like that's a media term. It's not a medical term because it's not a medical thing. It's not something that really happens like it sounds. Like it's not a rage, but some people do have these uncontrollable outbursts, which could be considered a rage on Trenbolone. But you'll never see that on testosterone. You'll never see that like violent, crazy outburst on testosterone unless somebody was like severely mentally ill already. And that was like the thing that put him over the top to set him off. But like we've just never really seen that. But we've seen people kind of snap and lose it on Trenbolone. So rather than, again, lumping something into a category and saying like all steroids are good, well, maybe most steroids are pretty beneficial for people to build muscle and stay safe, but then maybe Trenbolone's not. So I don't think there's any reason why we can't make distinctions in different things. We
don't have to be so clumsy, right?
Yeah. Like we don't have to be so dead set on like steroids are good or steroids are bad.
That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, sometimes steroids are good and sometimes they're terrible, right? Like, so I think we have to look at things in more of a way like that. Could Kratom be bad? Sure, Kratom could definitely be bad. Kratom could definitely be something that you don't want your kids to take. But then again, you have young kids, right? And if the doctor came to you, you went to the doctor, I should say, and they said, hey, your son's having a really hard time with math. And we just, we feel like the doctor you tell the doctor he's having a hard time with math. We don't know what to do. Then the doctor comes back and says, well, we diagnosed him and he's got ADHD. Right. We want to put him on Adderall. You're like, all right. Well, like some people say, okay, well, the doctor gave it to him. That's great. And other people stop and think, you know what? That's a pretty big decision. Now, I've argued with a lot of parents about Adderall, with parents that like put their kid on Adderall, and I'm like, hey, look, I don't think it's that good of an idea. And like, yeah, but he was really struggling in math, and now he's not struggling in math. And I'm like, is that what you want for your child? For them to be good at math? Like, is that what you really want? Think about what you're doing to the kid. Right. You're actually putting him on a very dangerous drug that's going to definitely have, and I'm not judging the parent, I'm saying think about it. Think about what you're doing to your kid. Is it important that he's good at math? My brother's a multimillionaire and he's horrible at math. Is that important? He couldn't focus.
I think that's the byproduct. What it does seem to give people that I know that have used it, which I've never used it, I've had people tell me I should consider using it. I don't want to ever give it to my kids because I have just that general skepticism about medicating in that way. It seems to give people incredible focus.
No, it definitely gives you incredible focus. But it also has a lot of deleterious side effects. I mean, it's methamphetamine. It's speed.
It's a little
It'll
bit
rot
speed,
your teeth out of your head. It'll
Adderall will.
It's methamphetamine.
Wow.
It'll do all the same things that crystal meth will do if you took it in those quantities. Now it's a very refined, clean version that you're getting. But basically, like Adderall, like one of the biggest side effects people have is like nervous tics from it. Like I have a cousin who twitches and ticks all the time, and she never used to do that before she ever took Adderall, and it's annoying to her.
Would it be a fair comparison to say Adderall is kind of like the testosterone to meth is to the Trenbolone things? Is it like just a more softer, more applicable, like more functional usage of the same kind of desired effect?
Yeah, in a way, like what's so, but like what's also the difference? There's a big difference in taking testosterone that comes from a compounding pharmacy, or comes from an actual legitimate pharmacy, or taking testosterone that you get from somebody in the gym, from an underground lab. If people knew, and I'm actually going to explore this in my next film or in some stuff that we do on YouTube, if people knew how hard it was to actually manufacture like real testosterone compared to the things that people make for these underground labs, I think they would be really shocked at how good of a quality the product that you get from a doctor is. Like the stuff that you and I take that we get from Whitmer.
What's it called? Bioidentical or something like that?
Well, it's just such a higher quality with these high safety standards in place. Like you're not going to get hurt from that.
Right.
Whereas like Trenbolone is like they take these pellets that are made for cattle, they crush them up, they mix them in oil, and they put it in a bottle. You know, you can actually, Trenbolone is really interesting because you could go into a feed store and you could buy Trenbolone pellets, right? Now, here's the kick. You can buy them you can buy them yourself. So I could go buy the pellets, right? I don't know if this is still the case, but for a while this was the case, and it's like a legal conundrum that's pretty interesting. You could buy these pellets and inject them into your cows, right? They do like these little incisions and they put these pellets in. You can do that, and the cow has no choice of whether you're going to put it on Tren or not, right? It's got zero choice in the matter.
Right.
You're allowed to do that, but you're not allowed to buy the Trenbolone pellets at the store, crush them up, and ingest them yourself. That would be illegal.
I didn't realize they were so accessible.
But isn't that weird?
It is weird. And do you need like a prescription from a veterinarian to get to these, or are they just?
I don't know if it's still the Wild West like that. But since we live up here in Northern California, I think it'd be pretty fun to go to a feed store and see if we can find some Trenbolone.
That would be an interesting outing.
Yeah, it'd be fun.
We really
I don't know.
do
I don't. To be honest, I don't know if it's still a thing.
Not that we're trying to like. It's like here. This is how you make a.
Oh, I would just love to see if it's still a thing. Like if you could still go and buy it. But I'm sure that But like, look, yeah, all these things like that are accessible. The other thing that people need to watch out for with something like Kratom is when we talk about quality. Now, the reason why I made a Leaf of Faith was because people were taking Kratom, packing capsules like in their living room and selling it online, just like we did in Bigger, Stronger, Faster. I hired a bunch of day laborers, a bunch of guys that, just were standing outside of Home Depot. And I went up and I hired them, said, hey, come with me. We're going to make some supplements. Now, is that how you want your supplements made? That's not how I want my supplements.
There's just too much risk of fuckery.
So there's a lot of that going on with Kratom. So I choose to use a co-packer that is like GMP certified, which means good manufacturing processes. So I prefer to have a legitimate co-packer make our Mind Bullet product. So we have people that make our Mind Bullet product. They test it 3 times. They run through all the same thing that any major manufacturer is going to run it through. And I look at the paperwork. Mark looks at the paperwork. We just trust that they do the things that they say. To tell you the truth, I haven't gone and double checked on them, but these people have been in business for a long time. The product they make is great. I go with it.
There's nothing wrong in saying that they have a certain reputation.
There's a quality assurance.
They have a reputation that comes with that. Right?
But you can also go to a smoke shop and buy these giant bags of Kratom that like you have no idea what's in it. And so the problem that we found when I was making a Leaf of Faith was a lot of Kratom had like heavy metals in it, and a lot of it had salmonella in it. And so when they found salmonella, we have shouldn't say friend. We have an acquaintance who was selling Kratom at a really high level. He was making about $50,000 a day selling Kratom in Vegas. And then he got popped because all of his Kratom had salmonella in it. And he had to dump, like the FDA came and the DEA came, and he had to dump all of it. So he was like riding high, making millions of dollars. But then not only did they confiscate that, but they fine the shit out of you. And then you can't really get back into the Kratom business again because you have this black, X on your head, basically. You could get back into it, but it's sort of like when you have to sign up for that new Instagram account. It's never going to be as good as the one that you had with the perfect name, and then you got banned, and now you try to go back again, and like it just doesn't pick up the same steam. It's kind of like that. So it doesn't really pay to sell, bad products like that. But I think that for the most part, if you buy a Kratom product, like the thing to watch out for is just really, really cheap products. There are some brands that are very inexpensive, but also they sell like a lot. Like if people are looking to price hunt on Kratom, I'll just be honest because I know I sell it. So of course, people think I'm going to lead them to just buy Mind Bullet, but I'll give you one hint. There is a company out there called Crave that sells pretty high quality Kratom in giant, big giant bottles of like 300 capsules, whatever, and you can get those fairly cheap. So if you're in a bind and you can't afford, another brand or whatever, Crave is one brand that I know of that actually is good because they're such a big brand. Most of the brands but then you also have to realize they use smaller capsules. They try to trick you, these brands. So our Mind Bullet capsules are like 0.75, which means that they're almost a gram of Kratom. They're 0.75 grams of Kratom. The Crave, like companies like Crave, they'll use like a 0.3 capsule. And they'll say, hey, 300 capsules for $30. And you're like, oh, wow, great. But like literally our bottle of Mind Bullet has twice as much Kratom as their 300 capsules.
It's the same tricks that they were doing in the gym industry, right?
Yeah. So you have to be careful for that. You have to be careful of, I just feel like we offer a good product at a good price that's worth it. If it costs you $60 a month to be pain free, like to me, that's a pretty good price to pay for it, Personally, I'd pay a lot more for it, but you don't need to. So, yeah, why do it? But I just think that I just find it really fascinating. It's something I wanted to share with people, that I think that Kratom has gotten this weird sort of like this weird stigma put around it when it's such a great plant. It's to me, it's one of like the most incredible plants on the planet. And rather than trying to scare people away from taking it because it may be addictive, I would like to encourage people to try it and see what it can do for them. And also just like be careful with it. I mean, like, why would we stop selling something because it's addictive? Does that mean like all these people that come on my page when I post about Kratom, oh man, that's addictive, that's gonna blah. It's like, okay, what about alcohol? Are you going on the rocks, social media? I mean, the biggest star in the entire world promotes booze.
Right.
Like that's what he promotes. The biggest health and fitness star in the entire world promotes alcohol.
Because he probably uses it responsibly.
Which is fine. I'm fine with him promoting it. But if he's going to promote alcohol, can't you let like my little corner promote Kratom, like something I feel is very beneficial to a lot of people? Conor McGregor, the biggest, most popular fighter in the history of the fight game, possibly, promotes what? Alcohol. Yeah.
Proper 12.
Yeah.
Proper 13.
Now, what if we had an athlete though that had some balls? Like what if like say John Cena came out, he's like, you know what? I love Kratom. I honestly think that it would take like the right person to just change the whole stigma of anything. And maybe that's something we need to do.
Kind of like Joe Rogan did with cannabis.
It's exactly what Joe Rogan did with cannabis. But, and I've been on Joe Rogan's podcast talking about Kratom, but maybe, Mark and I have all these connections to these people. Like maybe I need to send some Kratom to John Cena. Maybe he just doesn't know about it. He's had a million injuries, You know
who talks about it a lot, but I don't think they've ever actually gone down that road, is Tom Segura and Bert Kreischer.
They do talk about it a lot. They have gone down that road. They're sponsored by a company called Super Speciosa.
Oh, they did end up getting sponsorships.
And I was trying to be the one to get that sponsorship, but like nobody ever listens to me. Now I was trying to get in touch with them to get them Kratom, but then by the time I figured that out, was able to navigate that and figure out who I should ask, they already had Super Speciosa on board. Super Speciosa is a really big brand. They're a good brand. You can order from them online. I don't have anything against any of these other Kratom brands because I just love Kratom. I think it's great. I think Super Speciosa is a great brand.
Right.
I think there's a brand called OPMS, which is one of the biggest brands in the country. OPMS, the one thing I would caution people on is OPMS. It sounds like opium, right? They're like one of these companies that are kind of trying to push it a little like opioids. Like, why would you call your company OPMS?
A little too much of a name association.
A little close.
Yeah.
And they do make some really, really strong extracts that I just think are not really necessary for most people. And I feel that like really high doses of kratom can lead to addiction. So I feel like, you know, the level that we keep things at with Mind Bullet, like I don't want to go beyond that. I don't want to really offer anything more potent than the potions that we already have, because I don't think there's any need for it. You know, like if I know how much pain I've been in, and if I can take one potion and it fixes me up for pretty much, you know, the rest of the day, then like I don't want to go beyond that, because I don't think there may be people in more pain, but I would say it's few and far between. So I would just I wouldn't want to go too far beyond what we already make, because I don't want to make anything that's going to hurt anybody. We just want to help, you know. And that's the thing with kratom, is like we say, you know, our Mind Bullet motto, or Mind Bullet like tagline is "Kill the Day," because I remember, like, this is actually interesting, and I'll wrap this up on this, is the reason why it's called Mind Bullet is because Mark's always had a really hard time concentrating. He's been diagnosed with ADHD. He's been diagnosed with like all sorts of like learning disabilities growing up. And his son Jake, he would do like this thing where he'd like put out his hands and he would shake. This is when he's like a year old. He's like a little kid. He'd be standing there and he'd go like this, and he'd like shake his hands, and they'd be like, "What is he doing? Like what?" You know how the kids do, they have weird little traits. And they're like, what is he doing? And Mark's like, I think he's sending mind bullets. And I think mind bullets might come from like Jack Black's, what is that? Tenacious D?
Tenacious D, yeah.
I think they might use the term mind bullet. And so like Mark would say, like, he's trying to send us mind bullets. Like that was, so as soon as I gave it to Mark, that just like popped into his head, because he got really focused. And he goes, yeah, it's like a mind bullet. It's like that thing that Jake used to do with his hands. That weird. We still never figured out what Jake was doing when he would do that. Like, it was just a weird little kid twitch that he had. But basically, he's the reason why Mind Bullet is the name that it is. But Mark just felt like it was a bullet to the head of, you know, not being creative, not being fired. Like it's the bullet that basically that you need to sort of shoot you to the top, to sort of shoot you to the next level, you know? Mm-hmm. And so I always like the name. The other reason why it's called Mind Bullet, which I think is very smart, and we're going to use this in our marketing actually moving forward, is kratom does have such a stigma. So isn't it nice to say Mind Bullet, made with ancient plants, you know? Made with special plants, made with, you know, super helpful plants. Like, you don't need to say the word kratom, you know. When I say kratom, this is really interesting. A couple of my TikToks have gotten banned. TikToks where people are doing all sorts of illegal shit on there, crazy shit. You have so many, you know, gross pedophiles on there and crazy shit going on. You know, like I can't even explain what goes on TikTok. And I get my post taken down because it says the word kratom, which is an actual thing, and it's actually legal. So like the fact that the name of the kratom is named after the tree, the kratom tree, the fact that a word like that can get banned and then all this other stuff is allowed to exist, to me is just crazy. But it also shows you one thing, that it works, that it's effective, that Big Pharma doesn't like it, and it's knocking on Big Pharma's door. So if you've been thinking about trying kratom, or if you've been thinking about trying to get yourself out of pain, think in those terms. Think of like, well, why would this be banned? Has anything ever been banned because it's dangerous? Usually it's not because it's dangerous. Like testosterone was not banned because it's dangerous. It was banned because some people cheated in sports. So a lot of times when things do get banned, it's not because they're actually dangerous. There's actually a supplement. I will be right back. I'm just going. So there's a certain there's this weird cold going around now that they think that this stuff NAC could help with.
See, I'm just getting over that weird cold.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, negative on my COVID results.
You can't say that word, by the way. Can't say it on YouTube.
Oh my God.
Yeah, you're not allowed to say it. So there's a weird cold going around, and they think that this stuff NAC may be able to help that, so they banned it, right? But they don't say that that's why they banned it. They banned it because they said it's dangerous. But there's nothing dangerous about NAC. So Mark saw a bunch of this in the store, and he just bought it. This just can help you with all sorts of things. I don't even know what the actual reason to take it is. But it's just interesting to me that things get banned because of something so stupid, you know? So yeah, when you're thinking about taking Kratom, thinking about it, you know, is this going to hurt me? Is this going to help me? I think it's just up to you. And I would start small. I tell people all the time, start with like 2 capsules. And if you don't feel anything, Kratom is something that you definitely feel. You'll definitely know if it's working or not. And so if you take it and you don't feel it, you just increase your dose a little bit more. If you don't feel it then, you increase the dose a little bit more. Obviously, I always tell people start out using it as directed. And then if you have to take matters in your own hand, just increase a little bit each day until you get to a certain point where you actually feel it and you feel good. And that's usually your dose. Like I tell people all the time, people complain about it not being as efficacious as it was when they first started, like maybe 3 months in, 6 months in, like, I don't really feel it mentally anymore. And to tell you the truth, if you want to feel it mentally every time, your best bet is to take it like once a week, you know, or take it once in a while, like take it like literally as needed. When you get into taking it every day, you will develop a tolerance, but it doesn't mean, this is really weird with Kratom that I found, is it doesn't mean that it doesn't work for pain. It just might not give you that same head rush that you get in the beginning. Like that, you might become accustomed to it to the point where you're like, oh, I don't really feel the same like fired up and the same focus anymore. But I feel like I still do get the same things out of it. I still, like, the whole time I used it for pain relief, I used it for 3 years up until I did ibogaine. So I used Kratom for 3 years. I did ibogaine, and I feel like ibogaine potentiated and reset my system. And ibogaine is just another psychedelic plant medicine that we're going to definitely talk about on this podcast in massive depth. But it's something that sort of reset my opioid system and allowed me to use less opioids. So like the whole idea with ibogaine is that you won't use as many opioids as you used to if you are still planning on using them. So a lot of times ibogaine isn't used to just completely take somebody off of opioids. Sometimes people have a lot of pain and they may still need them. So sometimes ibogaine is actually used to just, well, the way it used to be used, and the reason why it was trying to be patented in 1954 is they were trying to approve it so that you could use less opioids and get away with it. You know, basically like not have to get addicted to opioids because you could use such a small amount of opioids after you've used ibogaine. So that stuff's really interesting, and we'll get into talking about that pretty soon. But for now, that's about all the information I really have to give you on Kratom. It's awesome to have you guys with us today.
This is coming out on New Year's Eve.
I don't know when it's coming out.
New Year's Eve, yeah. Last day of 2021.
Okay.
Yeah. That's tomorrow.
So this is, to be honest with you, me and Russell just sat down and started recording. Honestly, I was a little bit nervous about getting this podcast rolling. I'm not sure what I want to talk about. I'm not sure what I want to do yet. I'm not sure if I've got my voice yet. You know, I'm not sure if we're going to do these little short podcasts that are just little bursts of information, or if we're going to do longer form podcasts, or if we're going to do all of it. We haven't really decided yet. So just bear with us, and thanks for watching, and we'll catch you next time.
Bye.
Later.